Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Camera Life podcast. This is episode 36, if you can believe it. And what is it now, like 8 weeks till Christmas, maybe a little less? It's the 31st of October, 2024. We're coming to you live from 3 different parts of Victoria. We'll get to that in a minute. But look, stick around if you want to hear about photography tours in New Zealand. Stick around if you want to hear about astrophotography, wildlife, landscapes, and how our special guest works their magic and creates stunning images. So this is the Camera Life podcast, brought to you by Lucky Straps from Bendigo, Victoria. If you're watching along now or later, then welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button so you get notified of when we have podcasts. Also, don't forget that we do upload to audio podcast channels for those of you that like to pretend you're working while listening to a photography podcast. We've all done it. But welcome, Justin. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Not bad for what is it? It's a bit of an overcast South Yarra morning. How are things in Bendigo?
Look, it's a little bit chilly, but not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Just the
It's
usual.
been a bit chilly in the mornings.
It has been. Can't pick it. It gets hot, cold, hot, cold.
Yeah.
It's that time of the year.
It is. And special welcome to Pinky Spencer. Hey, Pinky.
Hi, how are we?
Hey.
Now you're coming to us from Phillip Island.
I am, and it's beautiful sunny today. Well, we had a lot of rain last night, but the sun's out and gorgeous day.
It feels like Phillip Island is kind of the northernmost island of Tasmania. You seem to have your own ecosystem, your own dialect.
Yeah.
I
Well,
know
you
a
do
few
need
of you down there now.
Yeah, well, you do need a passport to come over the bridge, apparently. So, you know, no,
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the world. I've lived there for 30 plus years and love it. It's fantastic.
And were you a country girl to begin with?
Yes, I always have been. Yeah,
Yep.
I grew up on a dairy farm, so
Yep.
I always loved country. I can't be in the city. I'll go for a day visit, and I can't wait to leave. Unfortunately, I love
Whenever
the
we
shopping.
catch up at street walks, I'll try not to take it personally that you're rushing for the train.
No,
car
exactly.
park.
Exactly.
So for those of you listening along, surprise, Pinky is a Fujifilm photographer, and we'll get into the gear that Pinky uses in a moment. I promise you we've got some non-Fuji shooters coming up. We've managed to wrangle in some guests from BFOP, from the Bright Festival. But for those of you that are listening from outside of Victoria, perhaps, and don't know where Phillip Island is, how far away is Phillip Island from Melbourne, Pinky?
It's about an hour and a half drive directly south of Melbourne.
What about to cycle? Because you cycle quite a lot.
I do cycle, probably 5, a bit longer. But I have. To be fair, I've never done that. I know people that have, but I don't fancy riding along the busy highways, so I've never done it. So it's just
Fair
a bit
enough.
scary. So yeah, it's a fair drive for Melbourne, but it's a beautiful drive. So yeah.
Yep. And Phillip Island, so that's southeast of Melbourne.
Correct. Yeah. So it's where the penguins are and the MotoGP.
There you go. There's a couple of good
Claim to
landmarks.
fame.
If I
And the
say that,
seal,
people
isn't
usually
Seal Rock
know.
still there?
Yeah, Seal Rocks is still here as well. That'll never go anywhere. So yeah, big nature park, huge nature park. So lots of opportunities to shoot, and it's south facing. So lots of opportunities to get the aurora and to clear dark skies for astro and landscapes and wildlife. It's paradise, really.
It is. It
yeah.
is. I remember years ago, a friend of ours from the Fujifilm Australia group, Dale Rogers, he would shoot aurora. This was before this was years ago, before auroras became much more intense, which they seem to have lately. But a friend of ours was shooting auroras from the back beach at Phillip Island, pointing south, and he would get these amazing shots with a couple of surfers standing in the foreground. Like, it was just
Cool.
quite magical stuff. Yeah, we should try and get wrangle Dale on board. But we're here to talk with you, Pinky. We want to hear all about your creative journey, your early beginnings, your inspirations, why you choose the genres you choose. And I think you've already partly answered that, and that you've always been a bit of a nature country kind of person.
Yeah.
And what better way to celebrate that than with photography?
Well, exactly.
But let's dial it back a little bit. Can we start by talking about what were your earliest inspirations or memories of photography? You know, when did you first pick up a camera and go, oh, okay?
Well, my dad always had video and was always taking, the slides when I was a kid, and then we'd have the slide nights. And I don't know, I've always had an interest in photography. And then it wasn't until I had like those point and shoot cameras for a long time. And then in 2016, I decided to buy a secondhand Canon. And I did a Astro Photography workshop with the one and only Dale, because he ran photo ranges down here on the island at the time, and he did courses. And we quickly found out that my camera and lens setup was absolutely not ideal for Astro. So he actually lent me one of his Fujis, and I shot with that just for half an hour, and the ease of the dials. Anyway, I just fell in love with the system, and also because he knew it so well, if any of us here had questions, we could just ask him. Because if I'm brutally honest, every photographer that I know on Phillip Island shoots Fuji because of Dale, which is it's really interesting. But personally, I wouldn't. So I bought my first Fuji, which was in 2017, 2016. And I've just sort of grown, and I've just done workshops after workshops. I've done quite a few with Dale, and YouTube. YouTube's great for learning. So, and just getting out there, just shoot, and it doesn't matter. You just shoot for yourself. So just shoot, and see what you get at the camera when you get home.
And so, what was that first Fujifilm? Do you remember what camera Dale lent you first off?
XT2. I got from
classic.
him. Yeah, and so it was a great camera, and I just found that the ease of all the dials on the top. I just find it a very nice camera. It's nice and light. If I can pick on one thing with them, they just don't do an ultra wide lens, so that's probably the only 16 is the widest. But other than that, I can't fault it.
Oh, there's an 8mm now.
I was going to say, so when you say 16 is the widest, is that a full frame equivalent? Is 16?
It's a crop.
Like, what's the widest full frame? Like, what would that be equivalent to full frame? What's the widest that they go?
It's 1.5. So the XTs are 1.5 crop sensor. So it'd be 16. So you're looking at about 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah. Was that the widest they had for a while?
Well,
for a long time.
It's and with a low enough.
Oh, they had a 14, but it was very old. It was one of the original Fuji lenses.
And now they've got an 8. You're saying
they do have an 8. It's a f5.6, I think. Might be wrong.
F5.6, and so that would an 8 is a 12mm.
Yeah, it's a 12
equivalent. Yeah. So it's pretty. That's pretty. Yeah, very wide.
Yeah,
I reviewed that. So.
I reviewed that for Shot Kit. It's a cracker of a lens, but unless you're doing something like architecture or Astro.
But even Astro, like 5.6 on a crop is pretty dark for Astro.
It is pretty dark.
It'd be really good on a tracker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't realize. I always thought they had like that kind of equivalent, whatever the full frame equivalent of like a 16 to 30-ish, I thought they had one of those. I don't know.
Well, they've got a 10 to 24.
Yeah.
That's an F4.
Yeah.
They didn't update that with the new one, so it's still an F4. So that's not bad. A lot of people use that for us, and I think you've got that in your
I do have that.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, but I mainly use it just for sunset and sunrise. I haven't used it for Astro because I haven't had to. I've always had the 16 to use for that, and I just stitch them together.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And there's also the XF8 to 16, which is a red badge zoom. It's a constant 2.8, but it's very expensive.
I know.
We've talked about that. You were considering buying it prior to New Zealand, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, but it was just, I just out of my price range, unfortunately. I've got too many lenses already, so,
No such thing, according to Justin.
Look, no such thing, kind of, but there too many lenses can cause, that, what's it called? Kind of like paralysis of choice. Your brain's like, which one should I use for this spot? And then it can really throw you off.
Yeah, and it can lead to you missing stuff too. Like if you know, if you walk out the door with, and I've written articles for Lucky Straps. You can check them out on the website, but I've written articles about, you know, more is less. Less is more. Sorry.
Yeah. I actually tend to capsule my gear. Like, so I've got a lot of lenses, but when I'm heading out shooting, I'll usually have 3 at the most that a lot of the time I'll just take 1 on a camera, like if we're going for a photo walk or something. But if I'm actually shooting a job, I'll still usually keep it to 3 and everything else sits in the car for an emergency if I break something or whatever. Yeah. But usually
they're paid gigs, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
But even then in paid gig, like I don't have a bag that's got all of my lenses in it.
Yeah, no.
Because it slows me down and weighs you down. And also, you're constantly thinking, I should use this or that. I usually pick the set. It's quite often now like a wide 15 to 35 on the full frame, and then a long the 70 to 200, and then a prime, the 50mm 1.2 prime or something like that. And it's like, all right, I'll shoot the entire day on those 3 lenses. It's very simple to decide. And then because if you got 8 lenses in your kit, just too much thinking.
Yeah, and you're also often on a bike.
Well, that's true too. So keeping the weight down. Yeah. But even not, like even when I shot that commercial stuff for Furphy over in Shepparton, like, everything stays in the car except for 3 lenses. And I don't know, just simplifies things for me mentally, for sure.
Very good.
Anyway, sorry, sidetracked.
Don't be sorry. This show is all about sidetracks.
That's right.
So Pinky, I started with the XT2. And how did you find that difference between the Canon and the Fujifilm system?
To be fair, I never really gave the Canon the time of day after that first shoot. I just
must be broken.
That was actually a thought, but no, I just kind of figured that, and I just stepped over, and honestly, I've never really looked back, and I've at times considered getting another system, but then, there's so much cost involved with replacing everything and changing everything over that I've just gone. It's just easy to stick. It does a really good job for what I want. It's nice and light. I can hike for miles with it. I'll just keep it.
It's just a tool in the toolkit, isn't it? It doesn't
exactly.
The badge on the front is less relevant.
Exactly.
I mean, doing commercial work is different. You have certain demands that you have to meet to meet the client's brief, but it's just like any old hammer.
Yeah.
If it fits your hand comfortably, and
I am curious though, because this is such a pro Fuji podcast. When you have considered switching, which you've then thought, it's just not worth, like a full system changeover is very expensive.
Yeah.
What are the things that make you think is it like a type of lens or something like that? Is it usually more lens or more camera that makes you think, maybe I should look into switching systems?
It was more the capabilities, the lenses and the setups. And I was actually thinking about going the Sony Alpha for a little while as well, just for Astro, which is beautiful, but they're very expensive. And I just kind of thought, look, I can still achieve the things that I want to achieve with camera gear that I've got now. So what am I actually trying to do? I'm not a professional. I'm not pretending to be a professional. I just shoot for my own enjoyment. And what am I trying to achieve with that? So I'm just sticking. I did after New Zealand, I will say I did actually buy a Move Shoot Move tracker to get a bit more depth in that Milky Way. It hasn't arrived yet, so I'm very excited.
Did you get to use one while you were away?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it was just so simple. It was because we went with Richard Taddy, and he's got all the gear because he's the major Astro fella. So I did the tour with. Am I allowed to give a plug? I did the tour with Levin Barrett. I did the tour with Levin Barrett from Rare View Photography, and he does a collaboration photography tour twice a year, once to Tasmania, which I did earlier in the year, and then this one with Richard Taddy from Nightscape Images. So those 2 guys are just incredible to go on a tour with. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's so cool. Richard's a legend. He's a podcast guest, previous podcast guest. We did a mega Astro, like I think it was out very long, like 3 or 4 hours long, just talking about astrophotography, and so he's a whiz.
He's so incredible. Good. And like when you look at his, YouTube. Like he's just during COVID, because he couldn't run the tours at Rostrada anymore. And that's where I did my first tour with him in 2019. And he couldn't do them. And so then he just decided to put them all on YouTube for free. And all he asked for during that time, because he wasn't making any money like everyone else, is he just asked for a donation. And how generous is that? I mean, he's just a lovely guy. He's just a great guy. And Levin is exactly the same. So we had a great time. So
super interesting.
We'll jump into your holiday a bit more in a sec. Can you explain how the tracker works? Because I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to astro.
I was too.
Promising to come down and visit you.
Well, you must. When I get my tracker, I'll show you how to use it. So it's just on the tripod, and then you've got your phone for your polar alignment, and then you put your camera on top of it, and it just kind of moves with the stars. Now, the most important thing that you have to do is you do have to shoot your foreground light painted shots first, because as the camera moves, your foreground's going to move as well. So when you stitch them together, you've then got a clear shot in exactly of your foreground exactly, because essentially an astro shot is about the foreground. It's not necessarily about stars if you're shooting it that way. So so and then it just kind of moves with the stars, so you get a lot more depth, and because you can leave your aperture up, and you can just you can use a longer lens, and everything changes. You no longer get star trails after your 30 seconds. So you can just have it open a lot longer. You can do it for 80 seconds and it will just move, which gives you a lot more detail.
Yeah, wow.
So I'll be able to use that 5.6 aperture because it just gives you a lot more detail because it allows it.
But you sort of have to, you step into that realm, which I'm sure you've already done a ton before, but it's like you're no longer making just the one image in the camera. You're approaching the scene of like, all right, foreground, and then and potentially, I think Richard, doesn't he sometimes do like many foreground shots? Like he'll stack his foreground as well, and then do the sky tracker shot, and then put it all together to create those sort of
So before Richard really started using the trackers to the extent that he is now, what we were taught, we did the foreground was like 6 or 7 shots, different angle light painting, and then the background, the Milky Way, was a 10-shot tracked with a noise reduction program on your computer that you put it into, and then you stack the 10 shots of the Milky Way, and you flatten that into one, and then you put the 5 shots in on front. So I actually personally really thoroughly enjoy the editing process of it. I really love that. Yeah, I love that. And I still have gone back a little bit to single shot astro, just because it does also give you a lot of detail, and I should really know that as well. It shouldn't always be that complicated, and I've just overcomplicated it with the tracker. But I just really enjoyed seeing it in use, and I thought, you know what, they're cheap. They're 20% off. I had to buy one. So.
We've all been there as well.
We have all been there.
It's on sale.
It is on sale. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. And if it inspires you to get out and shoot more as well, try a new technique. It's kind of like a new puzzle for your mind to approach. I think it can be a good way if you're sort of getting to the point where, particularly for, sometimes with single image astro shots, you sort of feel like, all right, I know what the settings are going to be before I've even set my tripod up, because they're kind of the same most of the time for a single image astro shot. If you're sort of looking for a bit more of a challenge, I guess, I think it's a perfect idea.
I'm looking forward to receiving it.
And if you get greater depth in the galactic core, then you're just amplifying what you're creating.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is amazing in itself, that that we can use our cameras, or you can use your camera. I rarely have done astro, but you can capture, light that has traveled billions of years.
It's mind blowing.
Just for that second, or 80 seconds that you're pointing your camera up. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
I love some of the I don't know what's the technical name for like where it's deepest, like more into the galaxies and stuff, like deeper space astro. No foreground. You know how it's basically a telescope on a tracker, like those crazy setups. Have you ever seen anyone use them in person? I've never actually seen someone.
I have not. I have not. We had one of the guys on tour with us, and he does really nice astro and deep galactic shots as well. But I didn't actually get a chance to talk to him about that. And he uses a tracker, and he's very talented. He did a beautiful shot of the Astro at Mount Cook that he just edited. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
I remember the days of Flickr. I used to follow a lot of Flickr channels or groups, however Flickr used to work. And it was all astro stuff, but it was a lot of them were that deep space, seeing nebula and dust clouds and like just incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. But that to me, like I can appreciate it, but it's not something that I think I would actually enjoy shooting. For me, it's about the whole package. And that's a very personal thing for me. But I do enjoy looking at them. It is interesting to see the detail that they can get. It's quite incredible.
And the detail's getting greater and greater as optics improve.
Always.
And
I
mean, even if you look at the stuff from the James Webb Telescope compared to Hubble, like the level of detail is phenomenal.
It's crazy. That stuff's insane. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, while we were in New Zealand, we went to the Dark Skies project, and we got to look through all the telescopes. And
really,
it was very, very cool. It was incredible. Yeah, it was very interesting, and how much detail you could get through the telescopes. And they said, these telescopes aren't new. There's a lot newer technology out there. So I can only imagine how amazing it would be to look through a new telescope now. So that was very cool. Very cool.
That's interesting. And whereabouts in New Zealand is that?
Oh, Lake Tekapo. It is, yeah. So so the town has actually, it's called the Dark Skies Project, and it's on top of the mountain. Now we were meant to go to the top of the mountain, but they had 80-kilometre-an-hour winds that night, so we couldn't go there. So we went to the craters instead, which was just as special. But they've got an agreement that all the street lights in the township are dropped right down, so they have no light pollution, even though they're only a 5-10 minute drive out of town. So it's a really special area to be at. Yeah, it's quite amazing. And the commitment from the township to it is clearly quite impressive. So it was good.
Very nice. So on the topic of astro, what was it about? I mean, I know you talked about the whole package, that the landscape is just as, if not more important, a part of the composition for you.
Yeah.
What was it that made you decide to A, shoot nighttime landscapes, and B, astrophotography?
Really, I didn't really have that much interest, if I'm brutally honest. It was a few friends down here that said, we're doing the workshop with Richard, do you want to come along? And I thought, oh, well, I'll go and learn something new. And it was 3 days. And once I saw the detail that we could get and how we could put them together, and like I said, I do really enjoy the editing process. So for me, I was just, once I did one shot, I was like, oh, wow, this is really incredible to have a play and be able to manipulate a photograph into one photograph. To me, that was a really cool way to look at the sky with different eyes. And I just became, I'm not going to say addicted. I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's not my only genre that I really enjoy. So I just get a buzz out of, got a buzz out of it at the tour. So I just kept going with it, really.
Nice. And you just said that.
How long ago?
Sorry,
was that? I was just
that was in that was in 2019 we did it, so it was just a year before COVID. So and of course, and that was the beauty. So when COVID hit and nobody could travel down to the island, there was dark skies everywhere on the island. So you could pretty much shoot in places that you would normally not have an opportunity to shoot, because there'd always be other people walking with lights and stuff. So it was quite surreal, but it was really it was pretty cool.
Because that's right. They had rules that people that lived out of, let's say, towns like places like Phillip Island, they couldn't travel to their holiday home. They couldn't.
Correct. Yeah.
Because there was that second residence rule.
Yeah.
Wasn't there?
So
because people were fleeing to their holiday homes.
Yeah, so effectively Phillip Island, like Phillip Island 30 years ago, where it was always really quiet. It's certainly not like that now anymore, which I enjoy both. But it was certainly a really nice time to be a wildlife landscape astrophotographer on the island.
Yeah. No pesky tourists.
No.
No. So astrophotography is not your only love. You do shoot.
Yeah.
You do shoot landscapes when the sun is up.
Yes.
And you also shoot wildlife.
Yeah. I have a fascination with birds of prey. I'm not a birder. But we had a birder on. I call them birder. I shouldn't say that. We had a bird photographer. They are birders.
We know what you mean.
We had a birder on the trip in New Zealand, and she kept shooting all these wrens, and I'm like, no, because you've got photos of birds. I said just birds of prey. So on the island here, we've got white belly sea eagles, wedge-tailed eagles, Nankeen kestrels, harriers, and oh golly, I can't think of the other one now.
Peregrine falcon.
Peregrine falcon, that's it. And so they've become quite, at the knobbies, because everybody just walks around because there's walking paths everywhere. They've become, the littler ones have become quite okay with people. And so they don't shy away from you. So you have a perfect opportunity to shoot them as they're feeding and hunting. And yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy that. But same with sunset, sunrise, landscapes. It's all, as long as I'm outside, I enjoy it. So
yep. Nice. I'm going to bring up some of your images in a minute, just to show. Sorry for the audio listeners, but let me just jump to your Instagram account. You okay if I share that with
yeah, sure.
the people watching along?
The world.
The world.
So this is a little bit of a sneak peek that you posted this morning.
I did. That was really interesting. That was out of my room, like that was my window. It was incredible. And it was a really, as I said, it was a super clear day, and the cloud was just rolling. So I put the camera in the window and I went out for a walk, and I came back to 450 shots, and I thought I'd put them together in Photoshop this morning. So yeah.
Nice. So that's kind of like absenteeism photography.
It was a little bit, yes,
Mount Cook is beautiful, isn't it? That whole area.
It was incredible. We landed on the Tasman Glacier with a plane, and on one morning, and it was mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. I'll definitely go back, that's for sure.
So you landed on the glacier.
Yeah.
In a small plane.
Yeah, and we were all crammed in there. There was like 9 of us in the plane, and we had to. They landed in one spot and we had to take off again because it was too icy, and if we were to turn, we'd probably flip over. So it was like a land and take off and go, and then we went around the other side of the glacier, and it was stunning. It was not cold, so it was just stunning.
That's very cool.
Was that?
Let's jump to some of your. Sorry, Justin, you go on.
I was going to start asking questions about the workshop, but let's look at some images, and then I want to hear the entire, like, everything about that trip.
Yeah.
Sure. So this is Kilcunda Trestle Bridge. This was on May 11th with that big aurora that there was 1,000,001 people standing at this bridge. So, I went there at like 2:00 in the morning, and the majority had left by then, but you can still see a few people moving around on top of the bridge. And that was the day before at the same bridge, in the same spot. I'd never done a star trail around there, and I thought I'm going to try it. And you can see a cheeky little aurora in the background there.
Yeah.
And, the next day she went bonkers.
I just feel like with these 2 shots alone, you're just showing off, really.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
You don't often see, and obviously it's you guys are sort of getting fairly south. You don't often see as much of the green at the bottom of the aurora. From what I've seen of what people are getting, like there's a lot of green there, and it's usually mostly pink.
Yeah, I will say May 11th was bonkers, like seriously crazy. Yeah. And my husband and our daughter, they followed me around the whole night. You could see it with a naked eye, and our daughter had never seen it before, and she was blown away and said, "Look at the pink sky." It was just bright pink to the naked eye. So I've never seen one. I've never seen one like it.
Could you see it? Could you see any movement? Like I've never seen. I keep getting skunked when it comes to auroras. Could you see that moving at all? Like any kind of change in the sky, or did it just have a pink kind of tinge to the sky to the naked eye? Like what did it look like?
Could see it. You could see this one. You could see it, and it was like it would get brighter here and then brighter on that side, and the pinks were just getting taller and then lower, and it was
wow.
I could not get the whole aurora in my 12mm Samyang. So there you go. That's it. So
time for a new system.
Well done. No, I couldn't get the top in. So yeah, it was just crazy.
It's such a good shot, especially the way the bridge like sort of separates the gradient of colors. And then the reflection of the green and stuff in the water. It's
stunning.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
so
I did enjoy that night.
This star trail you've got here. So this is an example where you've obviously stacked the foreground onto the. Yeah,
correct.
Is that right? I've got that right because you've got the.
Yeah. So what this is? So the star trail is 10 shots at 3-minute exposures. So you get that trailing and then you put them all together, and then it becomes the trail. So the front, if you look at the bridge and the water. It looks like it's light painted, right? But it's actually not. It's so well positioned that every time a car goes past, it just lights the bridge up enough. And the cars come past from both sides. It never shines directly at the bridge. It just sort of glances past and it just lights it enough. So we didn't have to do anything to the foreground. And they shot it like 20 seconds. And then the background, and then you just stitch them all together. Yeah. But I've since this one, so this was in May, I've since learned a different way that I'm going to try that gives me more color in my star trails. So I was taught that on the tour. So I just haven't had a chance to put that into action yet, but I will.
And we've got some of your landscape shots here.
That was at the knobbies. So everybody shoots everybody shoots the knobbies from the top, and I thought, oh well, let's just go down to the bottom and see what it brings. And I really like that band of cloud behind it, just sort of so even. And I quite liked it. The rocks,
it's great.
Yeah, it sort of talks to me.
Oh, here's one of the rare times you came to Melbourne.
Oh golly, yes, I did. And that was a photo, that was a walk that I did. And the only reason I did this walk was I didn't know the spots, because I see these shots all the time and I thought, I've got no idea where these are taken. So I just did a nighttime shoot and I actually enjoyed it, but I couldn't wait to get out. So that's my little Nankeen. And
Nankeen. I've never heard of a Nankeen.
I shot that with my 16-55, and I was less than 5 meters away from him.
Whoa!
That's amazing.
He just sat there looking at me, and I thought, I wonder what you're thinking. But beautiful bird, and a lot of photographers have got some really close, beautiful shots of him. He's just not scared. So, yeah.
That's a great shot. Look at that with the feathers out. That's stunning. And so this was the 16-55.
Yeah. He just hovers. He just hangs around. He just doesn't do anything. He knows
what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. I think
he's got the camera out again.
Yeah, I'll pose this way and that way. Yeah. I think he's got me summed up, actually, if I'm honest. But yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, very cool.
Very cool. Here's another.
Sorry.
Oh, Justin, sorry, mate.
I was going to ask, what do you do with your images beyond social media?
Nothing.
Nothing? Do you ever print them out for around the house or anything like that?
Do you know, I never have, and I get told off all the time by my family. I haven't, and I really should, because some of them would actually lend itself to it, especially the ones from around the island, because they're like where we are, where we live. And I really should, but I haven't. It's a miss of me.
What's stopped you from doing that, do you think?
Maybe, will it look good, or like you do. I think as a creative person and a photographer, you do question your, especially when you're not a professional and you've just been self-taught, and you're, I do think you question that at times, and I've never really given it a thought. But I really should. I think looking at those, I think I should.
Have you ever printed any of your images at all?
I had one. If you go back to that for a second, Greg, I'll show you one. And I didn't have it printed. It was actually someone I posted it on social media. So on our local community group, just wander down a little bit. Keep going. There's a that one. No, keep going. Hang on, sorry. There's one off the Phillip Island Bridge on there.
Yep.
That I shot. Yeah, that one there. That one. And I shot that at night time. And I stood at the top of San Remo and to get sort of a line going over, and I had to wait for all the cars. So that's a few images stitched together to get the cars going over. And one person saw it and they said, this is exactly the view out of my lounge room, and I want to see this view in my kitchen. So they had it, they printed it into a really big, like a couple of meters, and and it's got a hand above their kitchen table, and it looks great. I was really impressed. It looks really good. That's the only one, and I didn't sell it. I just gave him the image. That's the only one that's ever been printed that hangs in someone's house. So that's pretty cool, actually.
It's very cool.
It is really cool.
It's seeing your work printed is super satisfying. I was sort of fortunate enough that when I was shooting weddings, I made the choice to buy a printer to be able to print 10 to 15 photos for each wedding couple, so that they had some physical images, because everyone was getting everything digitally at that point. And I just wanted people to be able to sort of see some of them physically, but it also gave me the ability to print at home, any image that I sort of thought was special enough to want to see physically. I could just print it out whenever I wanted. And so I did a KL, I think it was KL workshop, a one-day workshop in Melbourne on printing. They sort of taught you about color management and stuff like that, because often what you see on your screen doesn't always translate to what comes out on the paper, and that can be a bit frustrating when you pay to get some stuff printed. And then so once you sort of get that figured out, and I'd be interested, obviously printers can be expensive, but the way that you talk about enjoying photography and especially the stacking and stuff like that of night images, it wouldn't surprise me if you enjoyed the process of printing finished images as well.
It's interesting that you bring that up. So I don't know whether you've heard of Ben Erickson. He does a lot of printing down here, and he's the one I did that Melbourne photo group with, and he invited me to do a printing workshop with him. So there's a photo on mine that I took at Cradle Mountain, and that one he really liked it, and he said, you need to print this. And I just went, yeah, I'll get around to that. And he goes, no, you need to come and do a print workshop with me, and I'll teach you how to print them, and then you can just do it yourself. And I haven't done it, but maybe that's something. Maybe you're right, Justin. Maybe that is something that I need to give some thought to.
It's worth trying if it gives you any interest at all, because it is it's very satisfying seeing that it almost, because it never quite feels finished to me when it's still on the computer, and then once it's printed, then it feels finished. It feels like that's done now. And it always it's super satisfying. If you have the opportunity to do a print workshop even without having to invest in a printer and stuff like that, go for it. But I'm even considering, I don't have, Jim's got our printer now that he uses for weddings, so I don't have one kind of in my office anymore, and I've been considering getting just a smaller one. We got one that does A2, which is pretty big and kind of a pain sometimes, because printers do have their problems. They can be frustrating. But just to be able to print like A4s or even maybe A3s would be, I think, really, really fun to have again. I've been missing it.
I think it's worthwhile. And especially given that you like the... Sorry?
Do you print?
I printed a bunch of stuff after every one of my trips to Japan.
Yep.
I did photo books, and the first trip, the photo book was, like 3 or 4 centimeters thick, because I just put every photo in it. And then as they went along, I became more confident in picking my own. And I think that's the hard thing, to pick which photo to print, because printing's expensive. It can be, especially if you're going large. And that would often stall me, like, oh, I don't know if this is worth putting it that size. But as I went along, and on my last trip, I made 2 photo books, very thin coffee table style books. And one was called Tokyo Chrome, which is my own, what I've labeled my street photography preset in Lightroom. I call it Tokyo Chrome, although now I'm up to new Tokyo Chrome. So,
nice.
Very creative on the naming conventions. And the other one was Tokyo Monochrome. And so one book obviously and it only has 35 images. I don't know why I settled on 35. I think I just reached that number of colored images from my 2019 Tokyo trip, and then 35 monochrome images. But in terms of printing to mount, I have also done that. I've got quite a few big prints. Got one of my favorite ones. It's what would it be? Probably like 1.20 meters by whatever the ratio is, 90 or something. That's about as big as I've gone, I think. So yeah, nice. But I think, Vicky, given how much you like the editing aspect of making sure that you're satisfied with the final image and the stacking process, and I think, like what Justin said, it just adds that extra element of getting your color science right and your color management right before you either take it to get printed somewhere else or you end up printing it yourself. But I always recommend even just start off with some 8x10s. Go and get them done at Officeworks, and just right. It's not the best color reproduction. I mean, they do use Fuji labs and printers, but you don't have a lot of control over the color accuracy. Yeah. But just to get that feel for, or what's the smaller size? 6x9s?
I think so.
To 6x4, I think.
6x4s or 5x7s. Yeah, like what you've got, Justin. Even just print out. They cost nothing to get printed these days.
No, correct. That's right.
Just choose 20, 30, 50 random images and go and get a stack printed, and just spend some time sitting with them and going through them, and lay them out on your coffee table or dining table or the lounge room floor, and it just changes how you see what you're producing. You don't have to show them to anyone necessarily. It's just part of what you're doing for you, but it does change. There's something very tactile and
when you can hold something.
It's like books versus Kindles. It's kind of along that. I just love a physical book. I like it's the whole experience. It's not just reading the words. It's where I'm sitting and how I'm holding it, and how comfortable. All of those things. It's the same with looking at prints.
Yeah,
it's a very different experience. So I recommend it to you and anyone who's listening along at home, or at work. To print some images, even if you just go to Officeworks or, heaven forbid, Big W or something here in Australia. Actually, no, don't go to Big W.
No.
I've had some shocking outcomes there. Go to Officeworks for
Officeworks, or there's a ton of labs around that you can just online. They're more professional than Officeworks in terms of photo quality. They're not outrageously expensive, but like Greg said, if it's a barrier to entry thing, if it's sort of like, I'd have to set an account up and this is too hard or whatever, just throw them into Officeworks. At least just get something in your hands and see it, and then and they're not expensive.
You might tuck them away in a shoebox and not look at them again for another 20 years, but it doesn't matter because you've completed that step in the process.
Yeah.
And who knows, you might find a gem in that pack of 50 images that you get printed small. You might find a gem and go, actually, and you might stick it on the fridge for a couple of weeks, or, stick it where you think you might want to hang it if you had it bigger, and get used to how that feels in the light at different times of the day. And then you might think, actually, I'm going to get that printed big, and you don't have to go huge.
Yeah.
But it just helps to connect you with your work away from a screen as well.
Yeah.
And it shows, and it's proof of the end-to-end process for you.
I can see that's the thing, because when it stays on the computer, you always sort of, it's never really finished, is it? Like, it's never really.
And I think you forget sometimes, especially when you take so many images. You know, I'll often go through my Lightroom catalog and go, oh, I don't remember. Oh, that shoot. Yeah. Oh, wow. You know, and if it's on a screen, a phone screen, or even on a hard drive, you're not going to see it.
No, exactly.
No.
But anyway, I think we've preached to you enough.
No, not preach. Maybe convince me that I do need to do this.
I'm sending you a link right now to an Amazon page where you can buy a printer. Okay, there you go.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, Greg, it's an affiliate link. Greg gets a commission, but you know,
I get a cut. Yeah.
If I might as well sidetrack the podcast like I always do. Speaking of printed work, I was down your direction, Pinky, actually, but not far enough. I probably should have gone for a drive. Yelena had a seminar on the weekend in Frankston. So we stayed in Mornington, and I was just kind of cruising around there doing some stuff. And I went to Mark Gray's gallery in Mornington. Have you been there?
No.
Oh, I've followed his work for a long time. Have you ever heard of him, Greg?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I can't say I have.
He's a landscape photographer. I'm going to have to pull it up now.
He will.
He's seeing the work in his gallery. Big, acrylic, like floating acrylic style prints where the light's shining on it perfectly.
Between two sheets?
Yeah, and it just looks like it's glowing. Like it looks like the colors just look, insane. I'll see if his website probably won't show them up very well. Anyway, I went in there and I want to try and get him on the podcast actually, but seeing those prints that big, like we're talking, a couple of meters wide, pano, beautiful, and they're like, you walk up to them and it keeps drawing you closer and closer, and the closer you get, and I was like finding myself, they can probably tell when a photographer goes in there because I'm like looking at I'm like, I wonder what camera you use for this. Okay, there's a lot of detail in this. But yeah, like the closer you get, the more you could see detail in the image. It was just, it was amazing. Let me pull it up. And it really sort of got me excited to maybe go to some more photography galleries, photographers' galleries around Australia when I can. Try and put that into the trips. I'm trying to find his. Hang on. I'm bringing it up.
Have you ever thought of exhibiting even if it's in a local coffee shop or something? Pinky?
No.
You got to. Sorry.
Wow, that is impressive. I haven't, and I don't know why. I haven't got an answer for you, Greg. I don't know whether I don't know. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, his work, I think he shoots a lot with various medium format cameras and stuff like that. I have no idea what he does, but it's lots of panos, lots of, like really amazing sunrises and all sorts of stuff. But just like, he's been doing this for a long time, obviously. He's got a huge body of work, but seeing the work printed in person, it was just captivating.
Look at the reflection of sunlight on the rocks. That's amazing.
On the rocks. Amazing. He does workshops too, which I've seen many times advertised, but never sort of never gone for it. But I'm excited now to maybe try and get on one. I think he does like sort of smaller workshops around Melbourne and then bigger trips as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I do want to get your story of your workshop, because I really think workshops are something that more and more people should be. It always seems a bit risky because they're often pretty expensive, and you're not sure like what the experience is going to be like. But compared to buying a lens or a new camera or something, I think that experience of either a workshop or like you've done like a big experience overseas is such a, I don't know.
Yeah. A new lens isn't going to make you a better photographer necessarily.
No.
Whereas a workshop, you'll learn something and you'll engage with others and,
And
get
but even
inspiration.
separate to all that, it's the memories, the experience. Like forget the photography side of it, but just like seeing a new place and having someone, you know, show you. It's just anyway.
Landing on a glacier in a small plane and
exactly. It's it's just it's adventure. But yeah, anyway, we'll try and get Mark onto the podcast. But visiting the gallery and seeing these things, you can't. I don't know. I should have taken some photos. The guy that was there that showed me around, he was like, "Oh, you can take some photos of the gallery if you want. Just make sure you tag us." But yeah, you can't. The picture doesn't do it justice. But the images, like even these vertical, what's a vertical panorama called? Whatever this is, like really narrow. You don't see that sort of framing done often, but they just looked so cool. Anyway,
I'll have to get up there. I think I need to go check this out now.
Yeah, it's just like on the main street in Mornington. Just I actually didn't realize where it was. I walked past it and I was like, it's right here. And yeah, the work is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to. It got me inspired. That's for sure. I've got a new project, Greg, that we'll talk about later. I'm going to spring it on you. Might be a new podcast segment, maybe once we're across everything in this episode. We'll jump into it.
Yep. All right. Let's put a pin in it, as my kids say. Whenever I'm ranting about something. Pinky, talk to us about your latest workshop. You went to New Zealand for 3 weeks, just on 3 weeks?
I was there for nearly 3 weeks. The tour went for 12 days.
Yep. Okay. Tell us about this. Tell us about this tour that took you around New Zealand to all these amazing sites.
It was a tour with, we had 13 people all up. So there was 2 non-shooters. So they were partners of the photographers that came along, and we had the 2 leaders, so Richard and Levin, and they just took us to all these amazing places. But like Justin said too, it's the travel to and from those places that's just as special, and the lunches and the dinners and the really fancy breakfast. That was just as special. But I've met some really gorgeous people. I learned so much. It was just because every photographer that's there, we had 2 in the group that probably hadn't done a lot of photography. They were sort of just starting out. So for them, it was a really steep learning curve, but they dealt with that really well. The others had all been photographing for a number of years. So I learned something from everyone, as I did in Tassie earlier in the year as well. So it was just really special. And I'm sure I've got lifelong friends out of it that I will always be able to call on. If you're from Sydney, if I want to shoot in Sydney, it'd just be a phone call and, you know, we'd go shooting in Sydney. So we went to some amazing places, from the Meraki boulders to the lighthouse to Lake Tenau. We just, so many beautiful spots that they cased out in previous trips that they found.
Where did it start and end? Like, where did you fly into? What was the process?
Okay, so I flew into Christchurch, and then we had a dinner the night before. We got picked up by the big bus on the Monday morning, and then we set off. So we basically did a loop through the South Island. We went to that tree, that Wanaka tree, and we did the Mount Cook. We went to Mount Cook, and then Lake Tekapo, the lighthouse. We saw the seals that are just on the beach, and you just photograph them from 2 meters away. And the Meraki boulders were very special. We had and I think this is the thing again that I learned that really reiterated for me, was that the elements aren't always going to work in your favor, but you've just got to make them work for you at the time. Whether the sunrises that we had, we didn't always see the sun, but it was still really special to be there. And some of the cloud formations will still make a fantastic photograph. So it was just a really eye-opening trip, and I'd never been to New Zealand, so for me it was like a double whammy, really. It was just beautiful. I loved it. I'm going back.
I'm
going back. But I actually did a tour with them, with Richard and with Levin in Tasmania in April, and that's when he mentioned this New Zealand tour. So I'd had no hesitation. I just jumped straight on.
How do you find these tours? Like, if I wanted to, can I Google it now? Do they have a website? Whose website's it on?
It's on Rare View Photography. And this year is the first year that Levin and Richard have done tours together, and I think it will be an ongoing thing. And so Levin is an interesting story. He's a pilot, a Jetstar, and he's nearing retirement, and he's trying to find something to do in his retirement. So this is what he's going to do for his retirement, to keep him occupied. So yeah, it's really cool. Really cool.
Oh wow! Look at his website. Go, hang on. I'll pull it up while we're chatting about it. But you guys can keep talking, because workshops are. I'd love to have just endless podcasts with people that run workshops or have been on workshops, because I really think it's a super important part of photography. No matter whether you're just getting into it or you've been doing it for 10 years and you're looking for a new spark, some new inspiration, or just a new adventure. I don't know.
And it's also a little bit of, everybody has a different way of doing certain things. And, you do your way, whether it's, I don't know, how to shoot astro, or how you compose a photograph, but somebody else will have a slightly different point of view. And once you hear that, you may pick up something about that as well. And I just find it really interesting. And I also find it really interesting in some of the shots that we did. We all shot the same perspective and we all edited completely different. And I find that really interesting part of the process as well. That was us. So how cool is that?
Look at that.
Wow.
It was pretty special. Yeah. So yeah, it's just beautiful. So that's the old church. So that's the old church god in Lake Tekapo from memory. Yeah, Lake Tekapo. And it's a really well lit up, apparently it's one of the most photographed, or the most photographed church in the world, because it sits right in front of the blue water glacier lake. It's it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Can't believe you landed on a glacier.
I know, that was just so surreal. So
was it
surreal. Yeah. Well, interesting story. So we had Levin, who's a pilot, and then we had one of our other guests. He's a helicopter pilot. And the pilot that we had was clearly a very capable pilot, but we got really close to the mountaintops, and they were both cringing the whole time. All the rest of us were totally oblivious to the danger at hand, but they were like, "Oh my goodness!" But it was a very surreal experience to have this tiny plane land on a glacier. Like it was remarkable. So the one down there with the boulders, that's the Meraki boulders on the right hand side. The other one, that's the Meraki boulders, and they're really interesting. They just a line of boulders in the middle of the beach, and there's no other rocks around, and there's nothing around. Like there's no houses or anything. So it's a really cool spot, really. And I tried some high key, so I've got to edit them yet. I haven't edited them, so I thought I've never had a crack at high key, so I thought I'd try that. So yeah, it was just it was very interesting. Beautiful trip. Loved it.
Oh, it looks like they've released dates for next year.
Yeah, so jump on. Honestly, honestly, it's you stay in the best accommodation. It was incredible. The food is just amazing, and he puts you in spots that you, if I was just a tourist, I would never find that sort of spots that he takes you to. Like at one point we went to Mueller Lake, not Mueller Lake, Moke Lake, and that's on the way to Mount Cook, and it's such an inconspicuous little dirt road in the middle of nowhere. I would have never even found that road, and it was probably one of our most special sunrises. The reflection of the color cloud in the water was absolutely amazing. It was just it was crazy good. So they're actually doing it a little bit differently next year. Next year they go on the reverse. So the first 2 days for us was a lot of driving. So what they're doing next year, they're going to land in Christchurch. So they're going to do the trip sort of backwards, and then they're going to fly out of Queenstown. So it's a day shorter. It just stops a lot of the extra driving that we did. Personally, I didn't mind it because it also allowed me to see the countryside as we're just traveling through. But yeah. But yeah, if you get a chance, honestly, these two are absolutely amazing with their the way they happy to share all their knowledge with you, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll get to see a beautiful country. So jump on, I say.
Yeah, wow. So, for anyone listening, we're just scrolling through the website for next year's one. It's not a cheap tour. It's over $7,000, but it is this one that they're doing next year is 9 nights, 10 days with 2 photography guides. And from what I can tell, it includes all your accommodation, which you said was pretty wonderful accommodation. It wasn't. Yeah. Not talking backpacker hostels.
Oh no, definitely not. There was a couple of places that it was. Look, I'm going to say 3-star. I mean, it was still fantastic, but that was the only accommodation available. Like there was a couple of spots, and so he didn't really have any choice. But the rest, it was just incredible accommodation, and it includes all breakfast and your dinners. It just does not include lunches.
Yeah, it sounds.
And the trip, obviously, like the travel.
Yeah, and you're seeing Milford Sound, Glowworm Caves. It doesn't. I'm trying to see if this one has the flight, the glacier.
No, that was extra. So we paid
extra.
We paid extra for that because that was, and because not everybody in the tour did that either. And because it can be so whether. Like if the weather had been slightly different, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's so finicky on the weather that he just said it's an extra. And I can't really remember. I think it was like 500 for the flight. But I know that's not cheap. But oh my gosh, I wouldn't trade that in the world. That was probably the highlight for me for the whole trip. Was that glacier flight, and to get some photography, like. To stand on a glacier and get a sunburst over top of a snow-capped mountain was just like, I'm still blown away by that. It was incredible. So super cool. And I learned a lot, and I thought I knew quite a bit about landscape photography, but you're always learning. And once you stop learning, I think is once you're at the end of the road with photography. That's just my personal view. I think you always keep learning and you keep changing things and you just keep doing things a little bit differently. And like I walked away with a move, shoot, move nomad. What do you do?
And so with the tour, were the flights were included in the package? No, or did you get yourself there?
You get yourself to Christchurch. Look, it's not cheap. It probably cost me 10 grand to do the tour, which is a lot of money, especially now I'm married. I've got a husband and he didn't come with me. But honestly, I still loved it. And it combines 2 things that I really love, travel and photography. And so it was a very special. And the reason why, look, I was never, ever even... So with Richard, when we did the 2019 tour with Richard up in Rostrada, we had a guy from New Zealand on that workshop with us, and Richard had collaborated with him to go over to New Zealand to do a tour, and I jumped on that tour straight away. Like there was no questions asked. And so we were booked to leave the country on the 19th of March 2020, and guess what happened on the 19th of March 2020? So
world shut
down. That
was right. Like that would have been
smack like 3 days before,
as it was happening. Like that wasn't even because that's about when it was March, wasn't it? In February it was just like there's this thing.
And it all started happening, and I remember ringing Richard on the Saturday before going, hey, what are we doing? Like this is starting to look a bit like we could get stuck over there. He goes, well, at this point we are still going. And then on Sunday night they closed the borders and he sends me a message. He goes, well, it's off now.
I guess we're not going. Poor Richard.
I know.
These are all the things that
he was devastated, actually.
So much work.
Oh, absolutely. So then I rang Richard in September last year. I was on holidays and I'd been doing some photography, and it just jumped in my mind. And I thought, oh, golly, like COVID's gone, we can travel again. Let's touch base with Richard and see if this New Zealand trip is still happening. He said, no, it wasn't, but he was doing something with this other guy. and they were going to Tasmania. And that's how I ended up in Tasmania. And that's how I ended up in New Zealand. And that's how I'm going to end up in Norway in 6 years when he's going to do his trip to Norway.
in 6 years.
6 years. Wow. You really plan ahead.
But that was discussed. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I just really, tours are it for me. I enjoy it. Thoroughly enjoy it. I do always go shopping after a tour though, which is a bit expensive, but you know.
When you've already invested that much money, what's a little more?
Yeah, it's funny because we're like,
I agree.
Go on a tour instead of buying a new lens, then you come back and you're like, I need to buy some
buy
stuff.
a new lens. Yeah.
I already bought the new lens before I left New Zealand, so there you go.
Gosh.
Wow.
And so where next for you? Where's your next? Where do you want to go next with your camera?
I haven't. I keep learning the move, shoot, move, and doing that really well. And then just, I think delving into Astro a little bit deeper now that I've got that would be something that I'd be keen to try. And just expanding, just getting not better, just doing things a little bit differently with my landscapes, and maybe chase a bit more wildlife. I'm not sure. I'm just really enjoying what I'm doing, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing, I think. And
it's music to our ears. But if you have a bucket list, what destination would be next? What's your top three?
Iceland, Lapland would be a top contender, and I'd love to go to Antarctica, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I just think all that sort of really broad landscape, like the really big expansions. I do have, I missed out on probably my biggest bucket list. I want to see the grizzlies in Alaska. So I'd love to travel to Alaska. I think I have a theme, right? So I like the snowy, the cold, I think that's the auroras. I think that's a real theme for me. It seems to be anyway.
I was going to say, obviously the Northern Lights and stuff are calling you, but based on the first couple of destinations you mentioned.
I think so. And a girlfriend of mine did it last year. She went to Norway last year on a photography tour, and they got amazing auroras and Northern Lights. And I was just like, oh, crikey, why was I not there?
Does the African wildlife safari stuff ever tempt you, that kind of thing?
It does, but I don't. It's too it's like a safari. I'm not sure that would cut it for me. I don't know. I have given it some thought. I know a guy that we have down here by the name of Pete Fogarty. He does tours to Sumatra for the gorillas, and I've certainly thought about that because I thought that would be very, very, very special too. I think he's done them for 2 years, so I'm going to give it a bit of time, and then maybe, in a couple of years, see what he's up to with that. He also does he's sort of kind of taken over from Dale a little bit, because Dale doesn't run workshops down here anymore, and Pete just sort of, he's sort of taken over that space from Dale a little bit. Because Dale's moving to Queensland, so if you want him on the podcast, you better get on. So you better get him on. So he's moving to Queensland. So
when we were setting up the relaunch of the podcast, I considered Dale, but at the time he was overseas, working because he's in child protection and children's services. So anyway, he wasn't available. But we'd love to get him on because he's got a very special eye.
He does.
Yeah. Very clever photographer.
Yeah.
Pinky, what, for people that are interested in maybe doing a tour or a workshop, what do you recommend is a good starting point? Like, is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a 3-day interstate trip? Is it?
I think if you've never done one, just go do a street walk like I do with you, and just see how that feels, and then do a 3-day or even a full day instead of just a street walk, and maybe find something or someone that does specific, like where you learn, because the street walks that we do are just meet, greet, you shoot, and it's a social event really. if you find somebody that does like a day, like what used to happen here with photo ranges, they teach you about your camera, they teach you about composition and settings and all the rest of it. Do a day of that, and if you really find that you are connecting with that sort of way of learning, then yeah, just build it up. Like I only ever used to do 2 or 3 days, and now it's gone for 11 days. And I just think you build it up. You start somewhere and you see how that feels. And also I think it's really important to get the right people that you connect with as well. Like the guides that you get, I think are really important as well. And there's a lot of really brilliant, very gifted photographers out there that are more than willing to share their knowledge with you.
Yeah.
And you've just got to grasp onto those people and just run with it, I think. Once you find them, you find them. So, which is really cool.
Gel. Yeah, I think that's good advice. I think community is a good starting point too. As you said, go if you're in a photo club or an online photo community that's active, and they do street walks, or they do, they go down to an Anzac Avenue during autumn, in a small country town every year, or go along with those and get a feel for what it's like.
Yeah, because I think if you're stuck in your own little bubble, in your own little square, and you don't expand your horizons, then you never learn anything different. You just get stuck in your ways. And I think even non-professional people, they can teach you so much about photography and places that I think you've just got to grasp onto those people. I thoroughly enjoy the walks that we do with our group, even though I hate the city. But I still enjoy it because it actually forces me to look at that life in a different eye, or through a different eye as well.
Yeah.
Like I would never think to shoot architecture or street photography, and yet I really enjoy those days that I go up there and do that. I also did the one at the Gardens up in the Dandenongs a few years ago, which was fantastic as well. And so it's just one of those. And I did a portrait one with the girl in the studio, which is something I would like. That's not at all who I am, but I just like to push my comfort zones and just see where I sit with all of that. So it's cool. Yeah,
there's certainly a lot to gain from it. I remember, I realised during BFOP at the Bright Festival of Photography that Justin and I went to a couple of weeks ago. If you guys want to know more about that, check out our We Survived BFOP video on the channel. Just how valuable those sort of workshops, I mean, it wasn't a tour necessarily, but just how valuable those workshops were, the ones that I did. And you're right, these photographers, these are professional photographers. Some are running studios, some are running galleries. They're very busy, focused people, but they still would stop and tell you, the emotional story behind their journey. As part of I found that really compelling, and because it lets you know where their sort of headspace is at and why they approach their work the way they do, and you learn from that. You learn from from someone else's raw experience in the craft. But also just really doing workshops that I wouldn't normally do. Food photography, and I did intimate portraits, and I find portraits really uncomfortable. But maybe my kids are right. Maybe I do have autism. Anyway, we'll look into that. Hey, Justin.
We'll study it.
We'll
do an episode.
Yeah, we'll unpack that.
Unpack it.
I did push my comfort zone once, and that pushed it too far. I absolutely hate. No, I shouldn't use that phrase, because it's not. I was approached by 2 friends in the same year to shoot their wedding. And my first reaction instantly was absolutely not. And they weren't huge, extravagant weddings. They didn't have a lot of money to throw at them. And I wasn't going to charge if I was going to do it. Anyway, they kind of talked me into it. The pressure that I felt, and the pressure in the editing process that I felt, made it so for me that I chucked my cameras for 12 months and didn't touch them. And that was during COVID, where I did not touch my camera. So probably 22, 23. Then I was sort of sitting at home one night, and a girlfriend rang me and said, hey, because she knew I hadn't been out, I hadn't done anything, and said, hey, what are you doing? Come on, let's go for a shoot. And I said, no, I've lost my mojo. And then I ended up going back out shooting, and I sort of found my way with it again. But that's something I will never ever. And I have full respect for you, Justin, because oh my goodness, no. And because I'm not into. I'm a bit like you, Greg. I don't particularly like shooting portraits. I find them a bit they're intrusive, and so that's not my genre at all. So for me to shoot two people at the most special day of their lives was just so overwhelming. No, never again. I won't be doing that again. And it's an art all on its own.
Yeah, it's a ton of pressure. If you don't feel the pressure leading up to a wedding, obviously it gets easier the more you do and all that sort of stuff, and you get better at it. But if you're not feeling pressure, then I would probably argue you're not taking it as serious as it should be for that kind of event. And it's I don't know, especially if you haven't done many or any, to be doing a friend's one. There's just that thought of like, what are they expecting? Are they going to be happy with this? What if I, whatever, muck something up, or they're just disappointed, or and it's just
And that was the thing. So where the friends of ours, where they got married, we were the guests and the photographer. Like I was standing inside, and they were standing in the doorway with the sun behind them, and I thought, what? Like, this is no way. So I actually said, you guys need to just move over if you want photos of this. And they didn't tell the celebrant, so it didn't happen. So I ended up shooting them from the outside in, and it was just a nightmare. And but I got some really beautiful shots of the family groups, which is really what they really wanted. And afterwards as well, of the couple. But when I remember when I edited them, I put them on a USB, and I was just going to give them the whole USB, and I went through the photos with them, and I was like, oh my God, like, what are they thinking? Are they thinking this is a really crappy job, or are they happy with the work that I've done? And I felt really uncomfortable. And so they asked me 3 times, twice I said no. And then I was just like, oh golly, I'm going to have to, but I will never commit to that again, ever. No. It's just not it's not my thing.
I mean, it's good to push yourself out of your comfort zone. See, who knows, you might have fallen in love with shooting weddings and made a business out of it or something like that. But generally, when it comes to weddings, I wouldn't do one unless I was, like, I wouldn't commit to doing my first one unless I was thinking this could be a pursuit of mine, and I want to, I want to put a lot of work into the lead up of this first wedding. And then see whether I like it, and then maybe it'll be, a side business or whatever for me in the future. But if a friend just sort of approached someone and asked them, and you were thinking about doing it as a one-off, it's you. And as you've found out, it's not worth the amount of prep and learning and pressure to do that one for a friend. I don't think.
Definitely.
I mean,
definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, I am glad I experienced it, I guess, to realize that this is really not something that I want to pursue. But it's not something I will do again. And our daughter's getting married in February, and she's got a beautiful photographer. So I'm stoked.
Exactly.
I'm
just
very happy about that.
Let them do their thing, and exactly. And then you don't have to worry about any of it.
Oh, I'm not going to be worrying about a thing, exactly. So, but definitely, that did definitely stop me from picking up my camera for a good 12 months.
Oh, that sucks. It sucks.
It did suck.
It's like the people that, you hear stories of people that train and then they run their first marathon, and then they don't run again for 5 years because it just destroyed their soul. PTSD from running.
I have PTSD from wedding photography.
Oh gosh.
I'm just going up over that now. So we're good to roll again.
No, that's good. That's good.
Nice. Yeah. Would you ever pick up the camera again for a wedding if someone begged you, Justin?
For sure. I'll shoot a wedding with Jim. It's just now to do one by myself, it would need to be someone I know.
Yeah.
I'm just not in a place to commit to that, because the problem is you're always committing like a year and a half in advance, and even as we found out, I think I told you, so we've got the dates for the Bright Festival of Photography next year, and I wanted Jim to come over, and he was like, "Oh, I've got a wedding on the Saturday," so like. He's already booked for a wedding on the Saturday of Bright. He's probably had that booking for maybe up to 18 months or something like that. So there's that side of it that really started to get to me, being booked in so long in advance. But also just the pressure side of it. Like, I know I can take good photos, but once you sort of get out of practice it a little bit, it is very draining. The next day you feel like you're basically hungover from like the whole day of interacting and having a group of people look to you and be like, now what? You know, like be creative right now with the next spot, you know, because everyone's sort of, they want to get through. It's usually that the pressure is right in that the rest of the day I can do with my eyes closed, you know, the ceremony and all that sort of stuff. You just kind of, that's easy. Documenting, no problem. But it's those moments where it's like everyone's looking to you for like, all right, now make some art with us in it in a very short amount of time. And you sort of, you just got to be on, and it's tough. Whereas if it was friends, for sure. For sure. Especially if they were happy with a more candid, relaxed style. And obviously if it's shooting with Jim, where I'm the additional photographer and he's kind of taking the lead for the day, because he still does, you know, plenty of them every year. He's well in practice. Then I would do that as well, as long as it's not booked in too far in advance. But there is a bit of enjoyment in doing it. You get to take, the thing with weddings is you get to take photos of stuff that people want. They want the images and they want great images. And you don't get to do that in such a variety of situations in a day very often, you know, where you're shooting everything from portraits to, like, we do sunset photography, we've done night astrophotography at weddings, all this sorts of stuff. And and someone is really excited to see the image and have it because it's theirs, their memories from that day. Whereas most of the time, you know, you're never going to do in one day, usually, you know, portraits and candid photography and then a sunset photo and all this stuff, and then have someone be super excited to like see all the images and really be, you know, gushing about them. That is definitely a, I don't know what you'd call it, like a dopamine hit. It's like a, it gives you positive feedback. That feels great. But, yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I've forgotten what the question was. But, yes, it does. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, it does. Is it time for some news?
Yeah, there's news, and then there's my
you want to talk about your surprise project?
New project that I need some feedback on.
All right, let's go with that.
Okay, and then we'll do some news, because Canon released some new lenses. Did you see that?
Did they?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Anyway, we'll talk about this first. Okay, so I've been thinking about the photo essay stuff ever since I did that workshop at Bright with Chris Hopkins.
Yep.
I think.
Yep. The photojournalist?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris Hopkins.
Should get him on the podcast.
I've invited him.
Oh, nice. That'd be cool.
Yep.
Hopefully he says yes. Please, Chris. So I've been thinking about that. And so I was down in Mornington and I went to, actually this was before I went to Mark Gray's gallery. And I was kind of wandering around and I got the camera out and I got the R5 Mark II with the 50mm on it. And I thought I would just wander around the beach at Mornington and sort of take some shots. I'm going to show you the shots. Maybe if I can share my screen.
Anytime you're ready, mate.
Yeah, we're getting there. Technical difficulties. There we go. They probably won't translate well to this tiny little screen, but they look good on my big screen. So these are 12 images that I shot just in a morning in Mornington. Not at the best light or anything like that. It was like mid-morning. all black and white JPEG straight out of camera, which is how I'm liking to roll at the moment. And I was just trying to capture the vibe of the general morning scene. Because it wasn't a busy day, but there was a little bit going on. And I was like, this could be a project that I do where each week on the podcast, I have to have a new 12-image little mini photo set ready to show the world. And I don't know if it's a good idea or not, and I'm going to let you guys decide.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
And I think you should let the guest of that week pick your subject matter.
Oh, no.
Oh, what?
That's terrifying.
That's a great idea.
No. I think what I'd rather, this one doesn't translate very well to the tiny screen. That's a plane up there, and I thought it went really well.
Is that a sensor dot on the right?
Probably.
Or is that my screen? No, it's my
it,
screen. It's all right.
That's your screen. Okay. Is it?
No, it was a little dot on my screen.
It's on your screen, yeah. So there's a plane up there, and then there's a bird in this one. I thought it sort of went well together. Anyway, so they're my images for this week, potentially. So what I would be happy to do is get roasted by whoever the guest is that week on what I could have done better and that kind of thing. I'm happy with that. And then, the reason I'm thinking a week, like do it each week, is it means that the images could be from one photo walk, or it could be spread across the whole week. It could be something like this, where it's a scene, like a place that I visited, and I just go for a walk and capture some stuff. Or it could be a theme that's more of a photographic technique limitation, or a lens choice, or something like anything that pulls together the set of images for that next week. It could be a color theme or something like that. But ultimately, I like this idea where it's more of capture them all in one shoot, and kind of tell a little bit of a story. I know these don't tell much of a story, but I tried.
No, I think it tells a story.
I like them. I really like the beach, the beach hut, the two side by side with the mural on the front.
There was obviously there was a ton of beach huts, but I really liked the combination of the art on these two next to each other.
I do too. I really like that. That's cool.
You know what's really hard is committing to black and white at a colourful beach location with colourful beach huts and beautiful blue sky and blue water and all this stuff. But I'm happy with it. So.
I think that's part of the challenge, though, isn't it? Yeah. To not rely on the poppy visuals that you've stumbled upon or purposely found, located. You're not relying on that to tell the story. You're relying on the contrast and the tonal values to tell the story of what's going on.
Yeah, I think so. It was fun. It was a fun experience. It made I don't know. I enjoyed it. So I'm thinking, what do you think? What do you guys think of that as a challenge that I could maybe do for a full year?
I like the idea.
I think it's worth you having a shot at it.
Yeah.
Any rules or things you think I could?
I don't want to impose. I don't think I would want to impose rules upon you as much as I'd like to. We could say, all right, you can only shoot it with one lens, or for the whole year, you can only do it with your 28mm RF. As much as I like that idea, and I've put myself through those challenges before, but I don't know that it's sustainable. And I think this is an experiment. The way I see it, this is an experiment about applying your learned skills over, time using a camera, and try to discover something new with it. I think the rules might be too limiting. I like the idea of it being a set number of images that you have to 12. Capture, and I think the JPEG thing's good because it forces you to be mindful and compose.
I'm unsure. I'll think of it. The JPEG thing, I'll probably shoot a lot of it JPEG. I don't know whether I'll make that a rule or not. I haven't decided yet because I do. I don't know. I don't want to push out the idea of being able to shoot in color and get a particular sort of style or something like that. I don't know if it's critical that they're all straight out of camera JPEGs, but I do definitely like it. Like, it bugs me so much. A couple of these horizons are tilted in these shots. And like
I wasn't going to say anything.
Did you notice the view? You want to you want to straighten them, don't you? It's like you just. It's
when did
like
you see it?
that
You
one's
can't even see it.
that one's pretty good, but like that one's crooked.
Yep.
That one's crooked.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That one's slightly crooked, and that one's slightly. I mean, they're all. Yeah,
they're close.
They're close, but they're not perfect. But I think it's one of those things that I don't know. It forces you to stop making your camera crooked. So I do really like that idea of not editing them, but I haven't decided if I should commit to that yet or not.
I think it's got to be a theme though. Like you can't. It's got to be. If you're going to do the challenge, and I agree with Greg. It's like to have the same amount of shots, but I don't. It's got to be like a theme week to week. I think that kind of brings it together. Don't you think, Craig? Don't you think that would make sense to do that?
Oh yeah, definitely have some sort of theme.
Each week will have a theme. I just don't know if I'll set the theme, or if it will evolve. Does that make sense? Like it'll evolve through the week while I'm shooting, or I've even kept the idea open. What I don't want to do is I don't want to dig into my back catalogue of photos and put a set of images together in a theme. That's not going to be allowed in my challenge in my head. But I have left the idea open that maybe, there might be something where I'm collecting images over a number of weeks that only end up as a collection, 8 weeks later. Yeah. I might take, it might be, say it's abandoned buildings. And I might only get one of those a week. And it might take 12 weeks for me to actually put that set together. Meanwhile, I'm doing other ones each week, So it doesn't necessarily have to be that I go out and shoot the whole set in 1 week. Yep. But it has to be fresh images that I haven't shot yet, starting from essentially when I did this shoot last week. Does it make sense?
I like the idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
And I think you might develop a theme over time. Like you might decide that you're going to photograph people drinking coffee. Silly example, but you know what I mean. And you're going away overseas soon.
That's what's got me thinking about it. Is like, what am I going to take photos of overseas? Like, why am I taking photos overseas other than just being like, I was here? And this gives it a little bit of something. I don't know.
Yeah, it does.
So
it does.
I like it.
Might be hard to. You might have to show them on the podcast for me while I'm away. I might have to send them to you, and I'll see if I can dial in. But I got to keep that commitment of like a deadline each week to submit my 12 images.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great challenge. It'd be interesting to see if you can sustain it for a year. It's a long time, but
how many photos is that?
A lot.
52 times.
What's that, like
624 photos? You guys, over the next year, you guys are going to have to watch me display 624 photos. Sorry.
Talk about Grandpa's slideshow.
I've basically just turned this podcast into forced making people look at my images and pick on my horizon lines.
Yeah. Dedicate a whole hour to it. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a really good challenge. And I think we talked about last week. I'm still trying to work out what my next challenge is. I've been quite busy with writing and reviewing products. So I've just sent back the last of the cases to Fujifilm Australia of all the gear they sent me to review. Terrible job.
I have to ask you that lens. Oh Lord, how good is that? The 500. Yeah, that impressed me. Hey?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never really done a lot of birding. To quote Justin, or was it you, Pinky? You said birding. Birders.
Birders.
I'm not a birder. We've got a friend in the Fuji group, Igor, who, it's Igor, isn't it? Igor Evans.
Yeah.
And he's a birder, and he's an incredible birder.
Isn't
and
he
Dean
ever?
Creedy does a lot of great birding stuff in our group. But yeah, that 500mm lens was very impressive.
Is it heavy?
That wasn't too bad. I can't remember what those
Compared to the 1-400, how did it sit in your hand?
Oh, no, it's heavier.
What's it going to retail for, do you reckon?
Probably, I think it's already up. Let me have a look.
Did you say it's a 5.6?
Yeah.
And a 500, that would make it, oh, my maths is so bad today. That's a 7, is that a 750 equivalent?
750.
Yeah.
Holy
And
moly.
it works with the 2x tele converter. So it could be a 1500mm lens.
It just sounds made up.
Well, the Fuji times 2, let me just share this screen, sorry. While we're chatting, share screen, Fujifilm. That's my favorite part of the podcast. This is it here. So this is the 500mm f5.6. So 5400, that's Fuji's retail price. I'd imagine that the retailers are probably dropping that to around 52, 5100. I don't think you'll get it below 5 at the moment, $5,000. It's a red badge. It's coming at the end of November, which starts tomorrow. It's less than 2 kilos.
Wow.
I remember when I was writing the review for this one, which I'll just bring up very quickly, and I was asking Fujifilm for specs. This is because it was under embargo. So they'd sent me the lens. I had it in my hand, but I wanted some more details on like the lens assembly and what was going on inside it. And they sent me this weird press release that said, for weight, well, it's under 2 kilograms. It was really weird. They wouldn't commit to anything, even though I had the lens in my hand. They wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I ended up with my calipers measuring everything myself until they'd sent me the official specs. But yeah, it's a bit of a champion lens.
You got some cracker shots with it.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, I mean, these are the product shots that I took. These aren't Fujifilms. These are mine. But the sample images, I was so impressed because a few weeks ago, or probably a couple of months now, I also tested the GFX 500 5.6, which was an incredible piece of glass, but I just had to fight it constantly to get focus on moving subjects. Whereas, the GFX isn't known for fast focus. It's good, but it's nowhere near the X series stuff. But this one, this XF lens was just incredible in terms of how responsive it was. And gorgeous image quality on the XH2S.
Oh, they sent you the camera too, sir.
Yeah, they sent me that one because they wanted me to experience it with a flagship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was pretty happy with it and got some great shots. And the last one with the heron, and these were great. I loved it. Like I was just walking along, and because with that lens, everything, you've got to be like 3 meters away from anything.
Yeah.
And I glanced over and saw all these butterflies. I went, oh, okay. And I lifted my camera and I was just at the right distance to get them in focus. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's me, by the way, with it. That's for scale. Yeah. That's my fat head
for scale.
For scale.
And that's with the hood on.
That's with the hood on, yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty compact.
It's not bad for a 500mm.
Yeah.
I did have the 1.4 teleconverter at the time because they'd sent it to me with another. This is my favorite one.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Is a heron. And this is not a genre I normally shoot. So it's sometimes the gear does help. Sometimes. But yeah, I mean, if you can borrow one or give it a shot, Pinky, I'd recommend it because it's really impressive.
Yeah.
I would like to test the 200mm f2, but that's like a $10,000 lens.
Yeah, it's pretty specialized.
Yeah. See, I don't tend to look at those because then I'll just want them and I can't afford them.
Yeah,
so I don't
lose sleep over them.
Yeah, exactly.
Smart.
Yeah.
Don't tempt yourself.
Exactly.
Well, just to recap on your project, Justin, I say go for it. You've got nothing to lose, and you've generally got a camera with you at all times. And so I think it's certainly achievable, and I think it will teach you a lot about yourself and how you see things. Because I know when you did the 30-day challenge and we talked about it, you were saying the hardest thing is knowing what to point my camera at. Because when you were doing weddings and you knew what you were looking for. I mean, you were building a whole composition, but you knew what the core subject was.
Yeah. It's very different.
Yeah, and we've all had that experience of feeling lost creatively, where we don't know what our next, what are we pointing our camera at and why. And like you said, Pinky, sometimes a situation or an opportunity or an experience can turn you off it and put you in a rut.
Yeah, definitely.
And make you question.
Definitely. We had when Photo Rangers, the group, it was like a community group down here, and a lot of people from all over the country were on this with Dale, and they did challenges like this for a year, 52 weeks. So you had to, and he had a theme for every week. And to do that every week, it was a huge commitment. I did it, and I think I missed like not many days in the year, but I certainly missed some. But to find the brief, like to get that in a photograph, was actually a lot harder than what I thought it would be. So I thoroughly enjoyed the challenge of it, but it was a bit of a commitment, but it is good fun. So it makes you look at the world a little bit differently, I think, and that's really important.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I should, and just to clarify, the reason why I'm thinking a set of images instead of, I think what it gives you a constraint, 12 images, not 20, not 10 or whatever. It's like it's 12 images, but it gives me permission to shoot things that normally I'd be maybe looking at, like, does this image tell a story? This one image. Whereas this gives me permission to be like, shoot something that doesn't tell a story, but it in a single image, but it adds to the story in the 12 images, if that makes sense. So it's like, it'll allow me to be a little bit more broad in the way I'm shooting and not worry so much about whether if someone just saw this one image, will they be like, oh, that's a great image, but it actually just fits with and supports maybe some of the other images in the set. And I like that idea.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. Make a
Me
start.
too.
See how you go.
Well, week one done. This was week one, Mornington.
I know that's a cheat.
No. It's my challenge.
Well, date stamp it. It's the 31st of October, 2024. We'll see where we are in a year's time.
Week one done. So
wish you all the best.
Well, it'll be the next couple of weeks should be easy because I'll be in Vietnam. It's almost like cheating.
It is cheating.
But then after that, then we'll really start to make me get out and do something. If anyone's listening, you want to join the challenge, let me know. I might set up a little somewhere for me to like make my hub. So if anyone else is thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this every week as well, hit me up. We can do it together. We can hold each other accountable.
Maybe you should start a separate Instagram.
Oh, I don't know about that. I really hate social media.
Okay, then don't.
I don't know. I'll think. I don't know. I might make a little groupie thing or something if anyone else is thinking of doing it. But if it's just me, I'll probably just post them on my Instagram, and I might. The main thing, the priority will be that they're on this podcast each week. That means that they're submitted, they're done, and that's like my. And then
that gives you a deadline and a reason to.
Exactly.
Yep. Very good.
Cool.
Well, let's jump to the news. But just before we do that, I just want to remind listeners at home that you're listening to the Camera Life podcast, episode 36. It's the 31st of October. Won't be long, and we'll be taking a Christmas break. Will we? Do we take a break at Christmas? We haven't discussed the terms of my contract, really.
I think we could at least take January off.
What?
Maybe February? No, I'm kidding.
No.
You get
all of a sudden. All of a sudden, the 52 weeks.
Days.
Well,
unpaid.
Hey, you better hope that Christmas isn't on a Thursday. Otherwise, we'll be podcasting Christmas morning.
I don't mind. I'm not a huge fan of Christmas anyway.
Sorry,
Pinky, what were you going to say?
I think Justin was just trying to get out of his 12 photos for the 2 months.
I think so.
February.
Already finding excuses.
I have been Santa on more than one occasion.
I can see
Not professionally, More of an amateur Santa gig. Actually, every year on Christmas Eve, when my two kids were little, I would come home. I had a Santa suit and I'd get dressed in the hallway of the apartment, like outside the apartment. And then I'd go in and, the kids were like 4 or 5 and they'd be, and I'd bring them a present and then I'd leave. And my wife at the time, she would, facilitate the hype and the video recording and yeah, they were good times. And I was and that was before I had a beard.
What?
Wow.
That was with fake beard. Okay, not this one. Although I noticed it's going grey very quickly.
It's not grey enough now anyway, Greg.
Not yet. There's still a bit of ginger. There's still a bit left. Thank you, Pinky. Anyway, as I was saying, you're watching the Camera Life podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe. Feel free to add comments if you're watching this later on. And yeah, we air live every Thursday morning, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at the moment. But check out the back catalogue and shoot us a message. And if you want to be on the podcast and you're a person of substance, then please let us know.
Or if you're not.
Yeah, or even if you're not. Even if you're a rapscallion.
We'll take anyone.
Yeah, well, that's enough about your love life, mate. Let's jump to the news. Quick bit of news I want to share first of all, which is kind of annoying for me, given I've just spent a fortune on a brand new Mac only a couple of months ago. Apple have introduced, they always do this. Yeah. I know it happens every year. I shouldn't be surprised, but now I feel that the computer's not good enough. So Apple introduces new MacBook Pro with M4 chip family and Apple Intelligence. The Apple Intelligence thing, they're pushing that a lot. It's basically, it's good with platforms like, well, in America, it comes pre-installed with ChatGPT, which is, like a text bot, which I'm not a fan of.
I mean, does pre-installed matter? Like, what does that, I mean,
well, you can't get it here.
But it's on the interwebs.
Yeah, I know. It must be like a built-in app. I don't know the details.
Okay.
I'm just reading the headlines, Justin.
Yeah.
Just doing the headlines, mate.
Dot points.
The reason why I brought this up as a newsworthy article on a photography podcast is because I know a lot of you out there use Mac for editing, photo, video, whether you're running Lightroom, Darkroom, Photoshop. Macs are really well designed and kitted out to manage the load photography workflows. New M4, it's got a minimum, just the basic M4, it's got a minimum 16 gig of RAM, which is finally a good jump because a lot of them will have 8. And I found that frustrating having to spend more to upgrade, but I did anyway. And that's up to 32 gig. That's on the base Pro chip. On the base chip, the Pro 4 takes it up to 64 gig of RAM, and the Pro Max takes it up to 128 gig of RAM, which would be great for videography or managing larger files and larger volumes of files in photography. I'm not trying to plug Apple. If you're running on a PC setup and you love it, then go for it. I just thought it was interesting to see how this sort of system would work for people like us. And Pinky, you're running a Mac, aren't you?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And Justin, you're on a MacBook.
It's fully pimped out, but it's the M1 Max, 16-inch with all of the stuff, which for video was an absolute game changer. I can edit very, very CPU intensive codecs of 4K footage without having to build any proxy files. For those of you who don't know, it's like it's like being able to just work with a raw file as opposed to having to build a preview file to be able to edit with, which speeds up workflow, exports are way faster. And now, so from my experience, I haven't actually tested an M4, obviously, because I don't have one, or even an M3. But my M1 was a giant leap from an Intel Mac. If you have an Intel Mac, any level of these M4s, or even a run-out model of an M3, is going to be like Greg's got an M3 is going to be a giant leap for you. And then from what I can tell with the testing, if you're just talking sort of normal video editing and photo editing, M2, M3, M4, you're not talking big leaps. The big leap was going into these M chips.
Yeah.
But
From
now
Intel.
you don't feel the need to upgrade if you've got Greg's got an M3 that's 2 months old or something. He doesn't have to throw that in the bin and get an M4. No. The people that they'll know if they need to upgrade. It's mainly I think they're getting a lot of gains in 3D rendering and stuff like that. But if that's you, you'll know if you need it or not.
Yeah.
But if I was you, I'd be looking for a deal on an older model probably, unless you want something that's fully spec'd out. Yeah. Yep. Even Yelena's got whatever the base model 13-inch M2 or M3 was, maybe with just slightly more RAM, and she can edit 4K video and stuff on that fine. It's pretty amazing the level that they jumped to when they went to these new M series chips.
The Apple Silicon chip sets. Because I jumped from a 2017 iMac that was an Intel-based chip to the M3, and I think we've talked about it before, but the difference was just staggering. And I'm not editing. I mean, from time to time, I would review a GFX 100S, so the files are massive. I don't do video stuff, so I haven't had to face that hurdle. But I just think, I mean, you do pay for it, but I think it's, I think the benefits are amazing with these sorts of machines.
Definitely.
And Apple continue to push the boundaries of what they can do. But I think you're right. It's like the jumps in iPhone models. When they do one of their iPhone releases, they kind of hype up the improvements, but compared to an iPhone that you've been running for 7 or 8 years, sure, the jump is amazing. But if you went from a 15 Pro to a 16 Pro, you're not going to notice a huge difference.
No, no, not a big deal. Better off going on a workshop in New Zealand.
It's bang on, exactly.
I've got some other news. Another new film camera has been released. We're seeing a bit of a surge in film cameras. This one, probably not for the faint-hearted. Leica have announced the Leica M Edition 70. It's an analog film camera. I think it has a 50mm Summilux. It's a stunning looking camera, and it looks a lot like a classic Leica. 70-year edition. Apparently, $23,000.
Holy moly!
Jeepers.
With the lens.
It comes with the lens in the kit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably an expensive lens.
So it's a Summicron M50 f2. Gorgeous looking camera. But
I was going to say, besides what it can do, it just looks stunning, doesn't it? They're just a nice camera.
They are. Hey Siri, what's $23,000 in Australian dollars?
$23,000 is $34,985.76.
So you get a bit of change out of a $35,000 note. So that's
nice.
crazy. 35 grand.
You get a highly spec Kia for that.
Spec Kia.
I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
With heated seats.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go.
Wow. Well, I won't be buying one of those.
No.
Nah.
Yeah. But I'm sure there'll be a ton of collectors and stuff that will, and maybe a couple of YouTubers, but not me. Yeah.
It is beautiful. But $35,000. Yeah, not sure about that.
Nope.
That's kind of all I had for news this week.
Did you see these Canon lenses?
No. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll bring them up. They only went live last night, I think.
But they've been announced for a while, haven't they?
They've been rumored for a while. I don't know if they were announced or not. Basically, so they brought out that 35mm 1.4 hybrid lens, which is like a photo and video lens. It's got an aperture ring on it that's declicked, which is a very video kind of thing.
On a Canon lens.
Yeah, but it's declicked.
Oh,
so it's video. It's like smooth aperture change for video, but like, which I shoot a lot of video too, but for me to use an aperture ring while shooting stills, I want it to click. And I'm pretty sure, does some of Fuji's lens, there's a switch to be like clicked or declicked or whatever? How to, like, or do you have to order a specific type? Or
no, they only make the one type.
Do they?
I think, no, most of them are clicky.
They're clicky.
I think they do have some declicky ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to find out more because I saw somewhere that they were like, someone said Sony, it can be clicked or declicked.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't know.
People use Sonys a lot for video.
Yeah, but I love the idea of a clicked one for photography. And these don't have it, and apparently will never have it. So for a lot of photographers, that aperture ring will just sit in the auto position. When you put it in the auto position, basically, then the camera operates as normal, where you change it on the camera, it's on the body. So why do you think you need that click? Because you need that the feedback,
haptic feedback.
Of changing each. So you don't have to look at the number changing to know what it's changing to. You don't need it. Obviously, you could use that for stills as well. But I prefer
but for you personally,
a click.
Yeah.
Just
I do use it, especially because for my Astro, I use a Samyang 12mm, and it doesn't talk to so it doesn't show the aperture on the screen. So I need to know, because when I do my light painting and my stars, I go from 2.8 to 5.6. So then I just count how many clicks, because otherwise I've got to get my phone out and have a look over the camera and see where it's at. So for me, it's super handy.
It's probably like, it might be just a leftover from when I was shooting DSLRs, but I used to count clicks all the time. So I could be changing settings in manual mode, because I shoot everything manual. It's like you could know that you are matching an exposure but changing, how your depth of field, or if you wanted to get some motion blur or whatever. And I didn't have to take a test shot or whatever and see if my exposure was the same, because I just count clicks, as I roll through the settings. I don't know. Anyway, what's more interesting is they've made so they've released it. They had the 35 1.4 VCM, and they've released the 24 and the 50 to match it. 24 and 50, and they're all the same body, exactly the same shape.
Wow.
So I don't know if they might put an image in this thing. Oh, so many ads. No, but basically they all look exactly like this. The only difference is the number 50, 24, 35. And obviously all the elements and stuff. There's a very slight weight difference. I think they're all around 500 grams, but the heaviest is about 580 and the lightest might be 520.
But the actual dimensions are exactly the same.
Exactly. Which they've done that for video benefits of using gimbals and that kind of thing, that when you're swapping them out, they're identical.
But there's also a cost benefit to them, isn't there, in terms of manufacturing?
Probably. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but probably using the same body. What bugs me is for photography, I feel like they've been compromised in terms of that, they don't all need to be the same size. So one of them's bigger than it should be, or whatever. In my mind, I'm like, some of these they've made in a different way so that they can make them a uniform set, but they are a hybrid lens, and that is it. That's the benefit. Unfortunately, I thought eventually a 50mm 1.4 might be an ideal lens for me, because the Canon RF 50mm 1.2, which I love, is on the heavier side. And the 50mm 1.8 isn't the image quality I'd really like when shooting a lot with it. It does a great job for the price, but it's a pretty cheap lens at a couple $100. So I was hoping they'd release something in that mid-range as a 1.4, and they have, but I think it's still $2,500, and it's still almost 600 grams. The 1.2's 950 grams. It's still a weight saving, but it's not down in that kind of lightweight prime
it's not
zone. So anyway, it's interesting. So they're out. There's three of those in the series now, and I think so. They got 24, 35, 50. I bet it wouldn't surprise me if we see an 85 and maybe a 28 fill the range out at some stage, and if they can make all that fit in the same bodies. And they've also done more to continue the hybrid range, a new 70 to 200. Anyone that shoots Canon will know the RF 70 to 200 is amazingly small, but it does have an external zoom, like it expands while you zoom it. This is an internal zoom, so it doesn't expand. 70-200, and it is hybrid as well, so it's got that same aperture ring. It's a power zoom compatible lens, which is a fancy video thing that I'll never use to match. So now they've got the 24 to 105 2.8 power zoom and this 70 to 200 2.8 power zoom, and it's the first 70 to 200 L that's ever been offered in black or white.
Wow.
Yes.
So all that cost saving they made on keeping it the one body for the other three lenses, they've just blown it on making two color
Black
variations.
So some interesting things are usually they say the white is to keep heat down on those big lenses, but Nikon seem to have never had that problem. But anyway, because they're all black. But the black body is apparently favored by video shooters who want less reflections and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's true.
So anyway, it's interesting. Apparently also the black is 5 grams lighter than the white lens.
Oh, different coating.
Apparently 5 grams worth of paint.
5 grams.
Anyway, that's all of Canon's news. What's that?
Do you get a saving?
I believe they're the same price, but I'm
How much are they
100%.
roughly?
Oof, I haven't even checked that one in Australia. I'm not sure. It's going to be expensive. Let's see.
You're scared to look, aren't you?
7200 2.8 power zoom. It'll be expensive. It doesn't even look like it's showing up anywhere. I'll come back to you. We'll talk. 5.3,
Okay.
I believe. Which is they're getting up there. That's the same with these primes being $2,500. It's like they're pretty expensive. It would, as much as I love Canon, it would really be nice to see them open up that lens mount to more third party options to give people just a little bit of variety in that affordable mid range. Because
it's a lot.
Their cheaper range is filling out nicely, and their top end is they've got a lot of options, but that middle is it's a big jump for people to go from a $250 or $300 50 mil up to a $2,500 or $3,500 50 mil. There's just this wide range in there where someone might want to spend $1,500.
Yeah.
But there's nothing on offer for them. So and they lastly they released another VR lens, the RFS 7.8 mil f4 dual lens for so it's for crop censored for VR. So they're really pushing into that
That's
VR.
their third
world.
one now.
Yep.
Third RF one.
And Canon Apple have actually mentioned Canon in some of their marketing materials and stuff for their Vision Pros. So it looks like they're putting here we go. Apple previewed this new lens at its presentation in June. That's when it was first cited. It was in some of the materials in that. So watch that space. It's definitely I'm interested to know what we can do in the future as photographers with you see Apple putting those spatial photos in iPhone capture now, where they sort of have that 3D immersive look to them. And whether that's going to be something that as photographers we start working on too. We're going to be able to do spatial immersive night photos of auroras and things like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
Cool.
That'd be cool.
Cool.
That would also be a cool way to hold an exhibition, wouldn't it? That anyone with a Apple Pro headset, you could set up a room with just your images. And
I was talking about that. So you're saying go to a physical space. I was
no, like be at
virtual.
home, but go into a virtual space that you've set up as a gallery.
I was saying that to Joel, Barefoot and Bearded at BFOP. I was like, when is this going to be a thing where we can, I can have my own exhibition and I don't have the cost of all the printed work and hosting the space, but I can send Joel a link or whatever, and he can walk through my gallery, and the gallery can then become so much more than, normally we find a space that's in a suitable location and blah, blah, blah. It could be a we could host it. It could be a dungeon or a, you know, like you could be on the moon. Like people could get very creative with the way they want to display their virtual work.
Hosts and all that stuff. They did that a lot during COVID with galleries.
Did they?
Yeah, they created. It wasn't virtual. It might have gone to virtual headsets, but galleries in Europe that you typically paid for, they created channels where you could basically kind of stroll into a room. I think they did videos. Maybe it was just YouTube. But yeah, where basically you just walk. It was like you were visiting the museum because you couldn't.
Because you couldn't. Yeah.
Anyway,
it's
super cool though.
I love that idea that maybe, and you know, I wish I was a developer or something, that you could, someone will build this thing that it could be a new way for photographers to interact and display work and, you know, view each other's work that's not on a tiny little phone screen on Instagram, you know, that you could be in a space and the photos could be presented much bigger. I love that idea.
Yeah, definitely.
But those Vision Pro things are pretty expensive, so there's that.
Yeah.
I tried the one at Apple a couple of weeks ago. Oh, it was I went in. I made an appointment at the Apple store. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. It was so cool.
So it feels great. Is it heavy? Everyone says they're heavy.
No, well, I didn't think so. Like I didn't find it offensively heavy. Like, you know, it's there, but it just allowed you to be right in that moment. They put me in the middle. They put me on a basketball court with like these pro basketball players, and at one point the ball's coming straight up my face, and I'm like, whoa! Like, actually, it was amazing. And if they went expensive, I'd buy one. But they are a little bit cost prohibitive at the moment. But I think they'll coming down, and worth it. Worth it.
It'll take its time, but they'll come down for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Remember how much DVD players were when they first came out?
Yeah,
or
DVD players. They were over $1,000.
That's right.
But if you want to try it, you could just go to an Apple store. You make an appointment. It takes half an hour, and they take you through the whole thing, and it's super cool. I'm
gonna have to do that because I want to experience it for myself. It sounds pretty cool.
Dedication, Pinky.
Yeah. Cool. Oh well. Got to be in it to win it, Greg.
Absolutely. Look, on that note, let's just take this news article off the screen.
Oh, sorry. Forgot about
that note, we're gonna wrap up. I think you ready to wrap up, Pinky? Have you out of words?
Yeah, I am. That doesn't happen very often, but I am.
No, it's not like you. Well, look, first and foremost, thank you so much, Pinky, for joining us. It's been fascinating talking to you about your travels and how you approach expanding your craft through photography tours. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, if you've got the means to do it, then, you know, obviously we highly recommend. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a lot about how you, exist with peers in a similar space. You'll learn a lot about your craft and you'll get to see some beautiful places. But like we said, if it's not in your means, then start small and build up to it, which I think is great.
Great for that too. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Or even just hook up with a couple of mates. Hook up's the wrong term. Even just meet up with a couple of mates. We're not promoting that on this channel.
No.
So just meet up with a couple of mates and set yourselves some challenges. You know.
Yeah.
Go on a street walk and force each other to shoot black and white JPEG, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
See how that goes. Works for Justin. But look, on that note, we do have to wrap it up. Once again, thank you, Pinky. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. Are you heading into town on the weekend for the Fuji Exile Street Walk?
No, it's a long weekend down here. It's Cup weekend, so I'll be working, unfortunately. Yeah. Nothing that exciting. But hey, I could take my camera out at work and see what I can find. There's a new challenge. Why not? There's a new challenge.
Why not, indeed. Justin, good luck with your next 12 images.
Thank you.
Pressure's on now.
I know.
Forward to seeing what you can achieve.
I'm regretting it already.
No regrets. Life is too short. Any photography adventures this weekend?
No, just getting ready to go to Vietnam. But I'll have to do something because I think by the time we fly to Vietnam and get there to get these to you for the podcast, I don't know if I'll be able to shoot anything in Vietnam. So maybe it'll be in transit, or maybe I'll have to do something over the weekend.
Oh,
so we'll see.
Transit, that could be a theme.
Airport theme. I like it.
I might just shoot the airport. Yeah, get 12 images.
Yeah. Try not to get arrested. Well, no matter what you're doing, for those of you watching and listening along, get out this weekend with your camera. Even if you walk around the block, look up, look down, look for the light, look for the shadows, and just enjoy the process. Get out and take some images. I certainly intend to get back out there this weekend. I'm hosting a photo walk in Melbourne CBD with my photography community of Fuji shooters, the best photography community of Fuji shooters.
Definitely.
You have voted again, Justin. I don't know how that keeps happening. But look, you have been watching and listening to the Camera Life podcast. This is episode 36 coming to an end. Next week's guest is still undecided. The jury's out or in. It's undecided. But we'll be sure to have an episode. You'll be here for this one next week?
No. I'll be in Vietnam, but I might be able to pop in for a little bit. But no. But I think Jim will be back next week, but not the week after. But I'll confirm that today. But I think he can.
I'll just take care of it all then. No, you go and enjoy your holiday. Seriously, no, please.
Just keep the train rolling.
Yeah, well, I will keep the train rolling. But on that note, get out and shoot and hunt some light. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week. And thanks, Pinky. See you, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See you guys soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
What happened to the music?
Oh, there it is.
You had one job.